Let's work on the second problem, and this problem is represented differently than it was in the first problem. The first problem was represented with words, and the second problem is represented, well, in a graph. So the data in the table below represent the number of volunteers at a small church. So we have volunteers at a small church, and if we look at the categories, we have males, females, and we also have teens, people in their 20s and 30s, people in their 40s and 50s, and then 60 and over. So let's make sure that we know exactly what it's asking. Well, first of all, this was supposed to be in color, but it's not, but I think you can see which one comes first and which one comes second, and up here, first one is males, second one's females. So let's write this out. Organize the data into a matrix. The rows should represent the age range, and the columns should represent gender. So we're going to have the age range, which was teens, 20s and 30s, 40s and 50s, and then 60 and over. And if you're counting just then, there were 4 age ranges. So we're going to write that down. We're going to write down teens, people that are 20 to 39, people that are 40 to 59, and then we're going to have 60 and up. And that means there are 4 different age ranges. And then the column should represent gender. And so we will have males and females. And now we get to the really fun part where we need to, well, figure out what numbers go in there. And in this particular case, we're going to have to figure it out ourselves. So teens that are this first column, which is males, there are 2 of them. 2 teen males. And then halfway in between 0 and 2, I think that's obvious, that would be 1. So there is 1 female volunteer. And then we come to this one in the 20s and 30s. So this first column is males. And so in the 20s and 30s, up to 6. Okay, so there are 6 male volunteers. And there are 8 female volunteers. Okay, 40s and 50s, there are 10 male volunteers. There are not 12, not 10, halfway in between, 11. And I don't think that's too hard, but I do want to warn you, actually, when we get to another problem that is an independent problem, the gap is from 10 to 15 or 5 to 10, 0 to 5. So we're going to have to really gauge it appropriately. So if it's in between, we need to really kind of see how far we have gone between 5 and 10 and just kind of gauge where it is. It's not going to be halfway, right? I'm just throwing that out there. Sometimes they're easy, sometimes they're not. Okay, 60 and up. So first one is between 8 and 10. That would be 9. The second one is between 6 and 8. That would be 7. All right, we need to figure out the dimensions of our matrix. That's the second question. And the dimensions of our matrix, always going to be rows and then columns. And just so I can reinforce a little bit of vocabulary here, when they say what are the dimensions, it might say what is the order of this matrix. And again, rows, then columns, always rows first. And I'm just writing down things that you've already written. Rows go horizontally, and then columns, and they run vertically. So we are going to just write down, well, the number of rows, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 rows, number of columns, 1, 2. This is a 4x2 matrix. Now, again, you might be tempted to say, well, 4 times 2 is 8. I hear you. You're right. There are 8 numbers in here, but we leave it like this because this tells me how many rows, how many columns. Okay, how many teenagers volunteer at this church? So we just want to know how many teenagers there are. So we're going to just add up teenagers, which is not super hard. I'm not even going to write down 2 plus 1, I'm just going to put 3. However, when I put a number, I often like to put it in context. So it's not like, oh, 3. 3 what? 3 teenagers. Now you could just look at the problem and see what it's asking, but there we go. We now have a context. How many men volunteer? So we're going to add up the male column. So 2 plus 6, that would be 8. Plus 10, 18. 18 plus 9 is 27. So 27 men. All right, now I am going to leave it at 27 men, but just in case you're looking back at your notes and you're like, oh, where'd you get that? Again, that was just adding up this column right here. All right, so write that or not, totally up to you. How many total volunteers are there at this church? Okay, so here's the deal. We have a very organized way to arrange our data, and now we just need to take the questions and know where to look. And in this case, we're looking at the whole thing. How many volunteers? every category, every gender. So we have 2 plus 1 plus 6 plus 8 plus 10 plus 11 plus 9 plus 7, and I'm realizing my calculator is not sitting here with me, but that is okay because I think we can do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 2, 6, 10, and 9. Now, we already did that. That was the first column. That was the males. And then we're going to add together the second column, which is 1, 8, 11, and 7. So this was 27, right? Because we added that and we got 27. So 28 plus 8 is 36. 36 plus 11 is 47. 47 plus 7 is 54. Yeah, 54 volunteers. And I'm going to double check behind myself on that. So this would be 18, 19 plus 8 is 27. 27 males, 27 females. We have 54 volunteers. Okay, what percent of the volunteers are 60 and over? Okay, I'm grabbing the calculator this time. We did a problem like this a minute ago. Well, in the previous video, whether it was a minute ago or not. What percent of the volunteers are 60 and over? So here we go. I need to know exactly what we're dealing with here. So I'm gonna write down the formula one more time. We're gonna do part over the whole equals the percent over 100. And the part is, well, the number of volunteers that are 60 and over. So let's figure out how many there are. So there are 9 and 7, so there are 16. So 16 total out of the whole what? Okay, volunteers, all the volunteers. Here are the volunteers that are 60 and up, and then down here is going to be every volunteer, and that's 54. Okay, and that's great. But that's really going to be the part out of the whole because they're asking for the percent. So let's take this and cross multiply it. I'll bring my work over instead of down because I didn't give enough room. So 16 times 100 is 1600. 54 times x is 54x. We'll divide by 54. We have room to do that here. So we divide by 54. And this is a fancy way of saying if I had exactly 100 volunteers at this church, then how many would be 60 and up? And the answer is 29.6. Now, obviously, it's a decimal, and you can't have 6/10 of a person. But there you go. It's an estimate. All right, let's do the last 3 problems. We're going to call this matrix C, okay, which means I'm going to go back up here to number 10, and I'm going to just write that out just because it might come in handy. This big matrix is C. And then we want to know what is C42. Okay, so now that is not C42. It looks like it, but it's not. And we've been through this. So lowercase c means tell me a number in there. Tell me the element. So what is in the 4th row, 2nd column? I'm going to write that down. Let's write it in green. It's for fun. When I write things for fun, I write it in green. I'm really kidding. When I write things in green, it's because I don't want it to run together with everything else, like these 2 letters ran together, but it spells column. Okay, 4th row, 2nd column. So if necessary, you don't have to do this, but if you wanted to, you could come up here, grab a pencil, and circle the 4th row, 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be people 60 and up. 2nd column, which would be females. And the answer is 7, but I also want to say what it represents. So it's 7 females that are 60 and up. So here we go, final answer. 7 females that are 60 and up. All right, what is C11? 1st row, 1st column, don't think too hard. 1st row, teens. 1st column, males. Male teens, 2 of them. Now you can circle things if you need to really identify it better. I'm not going to right now. So 2 male teens. What is C12? What does it represent? All right, 1st row, 2nd column. 1st row is teens, 2nd column is females. There is 1 female teen. So 1 female teen. All right, I'm going to add a problem, and I want to do that just in case you ever see it. Let's suppose a guy walks up to you and he says, what is, I'm not going to number it. What is C, yeah, I will. I'll call it number 19. What is C 5, comma, or 5-2? And what does it represent? Well, what is C 5-2? So I'm going to go up here to the 5th row in the 2nd column. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I don't have a fifth row. Okay, so if you don't have enough rows or columns, like if this would have been the third column, you don't have 3 columns, then the answer to that would be undefined. Because, well, I've run out of dimensions. I don't have enough rows or enough columns. There you go.